Hello, Gator Scientist! Today we are starting our animal unit, and the animal unit always starts out comparing and contrasting vertebrate animals, animals with a backbone, as compared to invertebrate animals, those without a backbone. And the trick to remember the vertebrate animals, because you do have to memorize all 5 of them, is the trick that says vertebrates live on farm B. Mrs. Leslie came up with this one. So, farm B would first be fish, amphibians, reptiles, mammals, and birds. So, vertebrates live on farm B. Or you can think of a bee farm. But vertebrates live on farm B. Fish, amphibians, reptiles, mammals, and birds. Now, if you're thinking about the classification of living things, this is how the animal kingdom would look. If you look right here where it says chordata, chordata means animals with a backbone. So these are the vertebrates. Chordata is Latin for vertebrate. So Latin, it means animals with a backbone. So the chordata, and then the phyla is vertebrates. And then if you look below, it would be the class: amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals, bony fish, cartilaginous fish, lamprey, and hagfish. And we're going to study these later in the year, and we're going to see videos of them. They're pretty interesting looking creatures. But basically, you need to know for the actual test: amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals, and then fish. And then the other animals, the other phyla, would be the invertebrates. There's the mollusk, cnidarian, or cnidaria, echinoderms, sponges, and then the worms. We actually study segmented worms in the 6th grade. And then all the arthropods, which would be the shellfish, crustaceans, centipedes, millipedes, so all the insects, crabs, butterflies, all of these would be included in the arthropods. And this is just a little overview and a little look at what they're going to do, but we'll go into detail. So vertebrates. There are 2 slides of vertebrate videos and 1 slide of invertebrate videos that I've put onto the Weebly. You can only access it if you open up the PDF file, and you'll be able to look at these really short, cute videos that are part of a website that is called exploringnature.org. Sherry Amsell is the lady who created this, and a lot of the pictures that you're going to be seeing are all of her pictures, and so I am giving a shout out to her. She's pretty amazing. Anyway, this is the picture that she gives for reptiles. Reptiles are classed, they're a class of animals. They're in one group. There are many different groups in order of reptiles. All reptiles share the same traits. Some traits. They're cold-blooded. They lay leathery eggs on land. They have tough, dry skin and protective scales or plates. The teeth are usually the same size and shape through their mouth, and they can take care of themselves very soon after hatching as babies. And there is a really cute little video of, I believe, a crocodile or alligator baby on the land. The mother has hatched it on one side of the water, and then you can see she's watching her babies on the other side of the water, and they really do function on their own from very early on, not like a bird that needs to be fed for a while. So these would include snakes and lizards, tortoises and turtles, alligators and crocodiles. Now, reptiles, as we just said a minute ago, let's just remember what we just said a minute ago. They are cold-blooded. Their teeth are all shaped the same size and shape. They lay eggs. They take care of themselves after hatching. They have tough, dry skin, protective scales or plates. And then, of course, the different types that they are: snakes and lizards, tortoises and turtles, alligators and crocodiles. Mammals, we know mammals pretty well. Well, at least we should, since we're part of the group Mammalia. There are many groups or classes of animals. Mammals is just another group. All mammals share some traits. Mammals have body hair that protect them from cold or sun. They have 3 middle ear bones that helps give them good hearing. They have milk to feed their young. They take care of their young, and mammals are warm-blooded. So, examples of mammals have been shown in front of you: toothless mammals, rabbits, seals or sea lions, carnivores, apes and monkeys, egg-laying mammals, rodents, marsupials, elephants, whales and porpoises, bats, pangolins, manatees. A lot of children have gone on the swimming with the manatees trip if you were in elementary school. Odd-toed hoofed animals and even-toed hoofed animals. So in review, mammals are animals that share some of the same traits. 3 middle ear bones, warm-blooded, they take care of their young, they use milk to feed their young, and they have body hair. Some of them do, some of them don't. And of course, in review, look at the pictures to see some mammals. Birds are another group. There are many birds and classes of birds, and all birds share some traits. Birds lay eggs to care for their young. Their strong, hollow-boned skeletons help them in flight. Birds have stiff beak, adapted for their eating habits. Birds have feathers, wings, and most of them can fly. Birds are warm-blooded vertebrates. Now, if you look right here, you'll see emus, rays, ostriches, kiwis, cassowaries, macaws and parrots, grouse, quails, pheasant, turkey, and I'm sure a lot of you, if you're hunters, you noticed some of these right away. Woodpeckers, hummingbirds. Thomas, there's hummingbirds. Loons, kingfishers, songbirds. Hawks, eagles, vultures. Owls, sandpipers, and seagulls. We see these a lot along the beach in North and South Carolina. Geese, swans, and ducks. Who hasn't gone to a park and seen those? Doves and pigeons and herons. So, in review, birds have strong hollow-bone skeletons. They're warm-blooded, and remember, the hollow-bone skeletons helping them to fly. They lay eggs, they have feathers, they have beaks, wings, care for their young, and most of them fly. And then, again, the examples of them. Sharks and stingrays. Now, these are the cartilaginous fish. Sharks are cold-blooded, they have gills, skeleton made of cartilage, very hard teeth, and 2 pair of fins. Regular fish are also cold-blooded, they have gills. They're non-cartilaginous. They have, of course, a skeleton. If you look at any fish on a restaurant plate, that if you order a whole fish, you're going to have to pick around bone and watch that you don't eat the bone. So a lot of kids, they think, oh no, a fish doesn't have skeletons in it, but it does. And anyone who's ever ate a fresh fish would know that. And they usually have 2 pair of fins. So one more time, just to rehash, they're cold-blooded, 2 pair of fins, they have very hard teeth, their skeletons are either made of cartilage or not made of cartilage if you're looking at a non-cartilaginous fish. They regrow their lost teeth, and they have gills. Amphibians are the ones that will go through metamorphosis. There are many groups of amphibians, and most of them share these traits. Amphibians lay their eggs in water. Newly hatched amphibians live in the water, breathe oxygen through gills, and develop lungs over time. As they grow, their body changes to suit life on land. Though most amphibians are never far away from a wetland environment, they will return to water to mate and lay eggs. Amphibians are cold-blooded. and will spend the winter months and colder climates resting in torpor, buried in mud, or leave litter. And just to review, amphibians, many groups of them and classes of them. They lay eggs in water. They have young that live in water, breathe with gills, while adults use lungs. They're cold-blooded and they return to water to mate. Examples of them are frogs and toads and salamanders. Now, invertebrates obviously do not have a backbone, and they make a mess if you squash them. If you step on an invertebrate, you are going to first feel a crunch and then see the squish. So they make a mess. Invertebrates are arthropods, and I will give you examples of those in just a moment. Mollusk, echinoderms, sponges, and segmented worms. Anybody who's ever gone fishing knows what a segmented worm is. You got to put that little wormy on the hook. So one more time, let's just go back over them one more time. Invertebrates make a mess. Arthropods, mollusks, echinoderms, sponges, segmented worms. Let's go see what they look like. Now these are ocean invertebrates. So these are just invertebrates that you would find in the sea. And I'm going to go back one more time before oh dear. Well, it looks as if it doesn't want to go back. Okay, there it is. Ocean invertebrates. Invertebrates are animals that have no backbone. So just a couple technical difficulties. So I know that you recognize some of these, and we're going to go into detail, but all of the ones that you see here are invertebrates. This one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and all of these. So here we go. Let's go on to the next one. So arthropods. Arthropods are, for example, arachnids. Now this isn't the only arthropod that there is. Arachnids are spiders, obviously, ticks, mites, and scorpions. All of these are considered arachnids, part of the arthropod family. Arthropods and arachnids of the arachnid class include spiders, ticks, mites, and scorpions. Most live on land. Many build elaborate webs. They are different from insects because they have 2 body parts instead of 3. So that's a big deal. Spiders only have 2 body parts, so any arachnid is only going to have 2 body parts instead of 3. They don't have wings and they don't have antennae. Generally, they have 4 pair of legs plus 2 pair of pincers in the front, and those would not feel so good. These pincers are different on different species, but can be poison fangs, feelers, or even extra legs. Arachnids are usually predators, which can benefit human habitats, though some are parasites like chiggers and mites. If you get bit by chiggers, they go under your skin and it hurts. You'll feel them and you'll have to have medicine to get them to go away. Mites, a lot of kids are even allergic to dust mites. That's why you can't live in an area that has a lot of dust or dirt. Most bite and some are poisonous. Now the next invertebrate that you have to know about is a sponge. Sponges are very, very interesting. They take water in through their central cavity, and just to make it simple, they basically will remove all the good stuff that they need from in the water, anything that would help the sponge eat and live, and then they shoot it right back. They shoot the discarded water that has no other nutrients in it back out. So kind of they eat in the same hole that they let it go out of the same hole. It's kind of strange sounding, but it's really how it is. Sponges are pretty simple. Now notice right here the little tiny sponge bud that's on the end. This should remind you of the plant unit when we talked about budding for cacti. If a cactus has little tiny buds on it, that means it's a baby cactus that's about to be born. Not born, but grow and release. Once it would release, it would plant itself in the ground, and then it would grow into a large cacti or cactus. More than one is cacti. So basically the same thing goes for sponges, except a sponge is actually a live organism and it's an invertebrate, and these little buds can come off and then they attach themselves to the seafloor and or to other organisms and they grow on them. So there are more than 5,000 sponges. They come in all shapes and sizes. Most of them are asymmetrical. That means they don't have a regular shape. Like if you took a circle and cut it in half, you'd have two identical halves. But a sponge is usually asymmetrical. If you cut this sponge right here in half, you would not have two identical halves. It would look very different. Though a few form radically symmetrical shapes, which means you can divide them in half, kind of like a pie, they are very simple animals with no tissues, organs, or even a brain. But they have special cells that carry out the needs for food circulation and reproduction. They're mostly found attached to the ocean floor in shallow coastal waters, but some live in freshwater habitats. They are called sessile. Sessile means they don't move around. They just spend their lives anchored in one place. Kind of like sedentary, staying still. Like stationary, like when we learned our fronts. Stationary meant they stay still. The front stays still. Sessile, just think sessile started with an S, stationary starts with an S. Sessile means it stays still. Though sponges were once thought to be completely sessile, scientists now know that some species can move very slowly. They are filter feeders, and that I think is one of the biggest things you need to know about a sponge. They are what they call filter feeders. They take in seawater and filter out any of the edible matter and then they regurgitate, just like I showed you. They take in food in this hole. They find anything that they need in the water that is holding any type of nutrients they could possibly use, and then they shoot it back out the same hole when they're done. They are made of two body layers. One traps food particles and the other one digests the particles and then transports the nutrients to other cells through the sponge. A sponge body is full of holes, thousands of cells that bring seawater in through a small channel, and then the cells have hair-like flagella. You'll learn about flagella and flagellum in the 7th grade, but really it's just these little hairs that act like little propellers and bring the water in and then remove the water out whenever they're done with it. Sponges reproduce sexually and asexually. I don't know if you remember that from the plant unit, but we learned that sponges can be male or female, or they can both have male and female sexual organs, which means that they could either reproduce by themselves or they can reproduce asexually. By themselves would mean, just like I'd showed you, the little budding, that would be asexual. And then if there was a male or a female, they would be able to also mate. Asexual reproduction occurs through the budding, where I showed you the small little piece of the sponge that breaks off and forms a new adult, and that is why sponge colonies can be so humongous. And they are also amazing because they have regenerative abilities. Like if you cut a piece off, it'll grow a new piece. Now, Cnidaria, jellyfish, sea anemone, corals, and hydras, all of these, now we don't have to really know how to break these down and what all the different pieces of them are. I just wanted you to see some side views of them. A cross section is what they call this, so that you could see how they're made up. Then echinoderms, which this is the Latin Echinodermata, but echinoderms are like sea stars, brittle stars, sea cucumbers, sea lilies, sand dollars, and sea urchins. And you guys are very familiar seeing these on the beach, and even some of these on the beach. This is just a little diagram to show what, for instance, the starfish that we just looked at, this is just understanding what it looks like. It has an upper and lower stomach, a little flattened central disc. Here's its anal muscle, which means that's how it gets rid of waste. It has different points of its endoskeleton. It is what we call symmetrical. It has symmetry, which means you could cut it down the middle and one side would mirror the other side. It has a mouth underneath its center, tubed feet, reproductive organs, a water pumping system, and 5 arms, which we call rays. And now these are the mollusk. Mollusks is the English word for mollusca, which is the Latin. These are considered gastropods, bivalves, and cephalopods. But basically, all you have to know is the examples of what a mollusk could look like. It could be a squid, it could be an octopus, it could be mussels, scallops, clams, slugs, snails, or sea slugs. And if you look right here, we did say that it could be slugs and snails. Now, a snail, the biggest thing that you need to know about mollusk is that they will have a strong muscular foot. And that's basically the biggest thing that they want you to know. This muscular foot will help propel it around. It helps it move. So all of these would have a strong muscular foot. Even if for an octopus, they're not only strong, there's 8 of them, and they're allowing it to move through the water and do all kinds of things. But a snail will definitely have a strong muscular foot. This is just a cross-section of a squid. It's got 8 arms covered in suckers on one side, which is similar to an octopus. This is a bivalve of clam. This is a bivalve anatomy. Like I told you, there were different types of them. There was the gastropods, the bivalves, and the cephalopods. Anyway, this is just the way that a clam, an oyster, scallop, mussel, this is what they look like on the inside. Here's its strong muscular foot. Now, you could take the time to sit here and try to guess the classes of these animals in the animal kingdom. And that is also a warm-up page. And these are the answers just to look through it. You can go back and always practice and then double check yourself here. Just fish, crab, lobster, snail, slugs, starfish, squid, octopi, mammals. So all of these are different classes. It would be a really good activity for you to first see if you can label which one was an invertebrate, which one's a vertebrate, and then go back and see which ones are endothermic or ectothermic. And we'll learn that in just a moment. Endothermic is when it has a way to control its body heat on the inside. Mammals are endothermic. Birds are endothermic. We heat up, we keep our bodies at a steady temperature. Fish, on the other hand, lobster and crab, insects, those are all ectothermic. An amphibian would be ectothermic. A reptile would be ectothermic. These animals, like a snake would go outside and lay down on the ground to sun itself to bring in heat into its body. And if it was too hot outside, a snake would dig a hole and burrow under the ground. Humans don't have to do that. Now, we do put on coats, or we take off some clothing and maybe run around in a lighter t-shirt in the summer. But most of the body heat that we have, we control from within. And this is just a real quick thing about what makes a bug an insect. If a bug is an insect, it has 3 body parts: a head, a thorax, and an abdomen, 2 pair of wings attached to the thorax, 3 pair of legs attached to the thorax, a pair of antennae attached to the head, mouth parts that bite, suck, pierce, lap, sip, or rasp. And so those things are mainly what makes a bug an insect. For instance, a grasshopper. It has all the traits of a typical insect plus some other very interesting features. A grasshopper listens with a type of eardrum on its sides. So on both sides of it, it has a specific eardrum. The grasshopper has grinding mouth parts for eating grass and grinding gizzard to further break down its food, and a grinding gizzard. It has small openings all over its body called spiracles through which it breathes, and spire means to breathe, if anybody remembers spear or spire. That is the word part for breathe, so that makes a lot of sense. They go through what is called incomplete metamorphosis, which means that it hatches looking somewhat like an adult, but smaller and gradually grows into its adult size and form. It goes through a metamorphosis, as in butterflies and moths, where the insect goes through. So this one goes through incomplete metamorphosis. It hatches looking more like an adult, and complete metamorphosis would be like a butterfly and a moth, where the insect starts as an egg, then it becomes larva, then it becomes pupa, and then it grows into adulthood. And you can go ahead and try to list the different parts of an insect. That's not exactly in our standards, but it does help you remember that an insect has a head, a thorax, and an abdomen. So it's head, thorax, abdomen, and that's 3 parts. And we'll get into camouflage just slightly next unit. So I'm going to go ahead and stop right there and hope that this really helped you to understand a little bit about invertebrates and vertebrates. Thank you.